Hi guys, welcome to Signal Path. Today we are covering a topic that is a bit of an outstanding request. A while back I did a video that I titled 5 Sounds in the Big Sky that you probably haven't used. If you haven't seen that video, I really encourage you to check it out. I think there were some really interesting things in there, and if you're a longtime Big Sky user like I am, it's a good reminder of some of the things that the Big Sky is capable of that many of us don't use from the day, kind of in the day-to-day. Today we're doing the same exact thing, but for the timeline. And the timeline is incredible and it's incredibly diverse in the sounds it's capable of, but often if you're like me, you find yourself in a rut of using the same couple of modes, couple of settings with minor tweaks to get you to what the song or the performance needs. So today we're going to dive a little bit deeper. We're not going end to end with the pedal by any stretch of imagination, but this is just designed to spark some interest, get the wheels turning on what is possible, and hopefully compel you to go and explore yourself. And so I would love to, hear your thoughts on these sounds. Are these sounds you already use or have used? Is there anything that I missed that is really, really special that you think is the special sauce in the timeline? I'd love to know. And if you like content like this, guitar and effects related content and demos and those sorts of things, it would mean a ton to me if you would hit the like button to let YouTube know to recommend this kind of content in the future, and hit subscribe so you can follow along with the channel. Without much further ado, let's dive into the sounds. Okay, let's take a look at these sounds, but before we do, let's talk about the signal chain. I'm playing my Jennings Navigator into the Bondi FX Squish as compressor and the Greer Lightspeed for a little bit of tone shaping, and all of that is running into the Universal Audio Strymon Ruby, mixed in parallel through the GFI duophony into a pinstripe pedals Diesel. Sounds like this. And here's the timeline. So what's going on here? We are in the lo-fi mode with basically a virtually non-existent delay time. It's showing 30,000 beats per minute on the time, and what that causes, right, is a very, very infinitesimal delay time that really doesn't separate much more than like a chorus would in terms of delay. Full wet, it sounds like this. We can bring back a little bit of structure and kind of regularity by making it a little bit smoother here. So let's break down what's happening. Starting with the sample rate. Sample rate's on full on. We'll look at that in just a second. But as we kind of move through, the bit depth is at pretty low, 5.5 bits. We've got kind of a full mix over to the lo-fi side. And that's actually very, very important to this kind of sound. If I bring this over to the D side of things, you kind of lose that lo-fi sort of magic that's going on there. So it's important that's over to the lo-fi side of things. And then vinyl is on dynamic. So that is one of the kind of magic things inside of the timeline that I think doesn't get used as much as it should, is the vinyl engine on the lo-fi mode. It's kind of what's adding that like really cool stereo kind of clicking and artifacting. But we can add this statically, right? We can turn it to static and it'll just run all the time. It makes noise and we can play over that. This is actually really nice with reverb. So I'm going to kick on the Big Sky for a second. And Sounds like nice rain. But I really love leaving it on the dynamic side of things. And for lo-fi pedals and all that kind of stuff in general, one thing I think they do a pretty poor job of is honestly stopping when you do. That's not the case here. So when I play, you get all that fun crackling. The moment I stop, it's gone. And that's really fun for reverb because you can load it up with all that artifact and all of that kind of craziness, but it sucks up and it dries up the moment you stop playing. So you have like total control, just layering that extra sort of, voice is the wrong word, but just sort of texture. Really, really neat, really easy to control. It's like a fun performance idea. Overall, other things that are going on with this engine, really not using the filter at the moment, doesn't need it, but this is a great opportunity if you like things like the Gen Loss, don't want to commit a pedal to that type of filtering. This is a great way to achieve it. It's just very, very low delay time and full mix or close to it. But let's try out a few of these filters. If we bring back the mix a little bit. I'm really partial to filter 1. I can't quite recall what it was based off of, but kind of half mix with a little bit of reverb. It is a ton of fun. And finally, the last component of this kind of sound and setup I wanted to talk about was how the modulation sounds on this kind of dry sound. So with depth all the way down. Filtery and weird and kind of staticky, but overall, if you wind this up, maybe even bring the bit depth up slightly. Genuinely one of my favorite lo-fi modulation sounds. try out the Lo-Fi mode as kind of a lo-fi modulation engine. Works great. All right, next up we're going to talk about the pattern mode, and specifically two of the patterns in particular, but I think if we all at this point know, if you're looking for ping pong, that is pattern mode, pattern 1. But there are some really neat kind of inflections and rhythms that I find are really, really fun for setting foundations and productions and particular parts where patterns 2 and 7 are particularly kind of fun and happy. And they just make me play different things. And this is less about the sounds of the timeline, I suppose, and more about what working with your effects and experimenting can produce. Because for me, the more I lean into pattern, the more interesting and different from myself I feel like I play. And so this is pattern 7. It's got that kind of fun syncopation to it. And so when you start kind of layering in notes that you would normally use in different manners, it starts to pull different things out of you. So if you're ever struggling to get going on pattern mode, what I'd recommend is just starting with one note. Kind of picking eighths or quarters until you kind of get an idea for like how things collide, how they kind of fall over each other. And once you kind of get a grasp on that, it really pushes things into some neat areas. So try that out. I love pattern 2 as well. And on this mode, I actually do find with some of the weirder syncopations that it is helpful to have a little bit of smear in there just to kind of make it a little bit less pointillistic when you start layering in notes. But give your drummer a break. Let them lay off the hats for a bit. You can kind of do that high-end movement that really, really cool for like faux percussion. Anyway, try it out. Let me know what you think. All right, this next sound is for the gain users in the set. I'm going to kick on the King of Tone red side, which is the high gain mod. And we're going to talk about the duck mode, which I think is actually one of the most brilliant kind of things that just use it. It's so good. But basically, if you're not familiar with what the duck mode is, it is essentially a method for us to duck the delay mix when we're playing and playing loud. And often if you're struggling to get lead lines and things to poke out in front, the duck mode's probably your best friend, because you want those big tail, kind of like those epic moments, to have a big tail and ambience and things behind it, but you don't want it colliding with your playing. And so often, if a sound guy's like, hey, it's too wet, or there's too much delay or anything like that. The duck mode really is like the perfect implement, and I think more people need to check it out. But let's kick on the King of Tone. So you can hear when I stop playing, it starts to swell in and fade in. So what's cool about this is I bet you've never used a delay on your rhythm tone, but you can hear. So it's just useful ambience. It's like ambience when you're not playing. I don't think I need to go further than that. Check it out. It's so nice, especially for just... And then you layer in reverb, and that's kind of when the whole picture comes together. Quick, easy, useful. All right, this one may be obvious to some, but I think the ice is another one of the most underappreciated modes in the timeline. If you are someone who likes kind of like things like the Particle 2 and the Mood and Onward and so many of these other incredible ambient and kind of, ear candy generating pedals, I think it can't really be overstated how much the timeline was a bit of a tastemaker and really a breakthrough for many of those sounds. And I talked to so many timeline users who are like, I use D-tape and maybe digital, and that's about it. And I think for many people that's a tragedy because they have other complicated pedals on the board while they're really not using the full potential of what they've got already on. And Ice is one of those for me that I kind of constantly come back to the trough for. Kind of a couple things to note with this sound. I think smear actually gets in your way of creating nice sounds, and I think we can kind of get into this here, but if we bring the smear all the way up and bring this kind of up in terms of mix just slightly, it smears and it smooths things out, but it doesn't make it smoother. In my opinion, it makes it indistinct, and so I would rather smooth with things like reverb. So I think if you're looking for success from the Ice Machine, I think it works much, much better without smear. And if you're feeling like that's too pokey, that's what reverb's for. But there are also some really neat kind of things that you can do in and around, just like the detune settings. If you want kind of that weird reversey thing that doesn't feel like it's actually like super obtrusive, it's so neat, and the modulation's entirely off, by the way. This is just the 25-cent detune. With some light reverb. It feels slightly lazier if you detune down. I'm someone for ambient stuff who tends to prefer, I would say, tuning down versus up. I think that when you're being pitchy, I think pitching, being over the pitch is more obnoxious often than being below it. Below sounds lazy, where above sounds boisterous, in my opinion. So if you're looking for like calmness, definitely something I would aim below personally. 50 Cent starts to get pretty weird, but so pretty. And changing the slice does matter a lot. I would almost always recommend starting on the long slice. It just starts to get this weird kind of like vibration and percussion that I'm not super jazzed on most of the time. I kind of want this long kind of smearing blends, and that's where the blend is between delay and interval, because I don't have another delay after this. I kind of want a little bit of both of those sounds of the slice coming back, but also just some standard delay in the mix as well. And then I'm an octave guy. I don't get into the weird cascading sevenths or fourths or anything like that. But for adding depth to a sound, come on, it's just so sweet. Finally, in the set of modes that I really think deserve a new try, the filter mode, which you probably are used to sounding a bit like this. And it's cool. I'm not going to say it's not cool, but there are ways to sort of adjust things in ways that I think are useful and leave this a very, very interesting sound that adds a ton of movement, especially for ambient stuff. But also kind of like just have some personality. So I've changed the location to post delay here. And then we're going to kind of change the Q down quite a bit. We're going to set it where it's just adding enough kind of breath to give a little bit of flavor here, a little bit more depth, and we're going to slow the speed down actually quite a bit. Now if we increase the repeats a little bit, now we start to get these kind of morphing, interesting sort of beds of filtered delays. Now if we add some reverb, which is really what this is kind of teeing up for. Really nice for adding movement. And would I make this the key, like, sort of highlighted top line tone in an arrangement? Probably not. But for adding space and depth and a little bit of kind of underlying movement for a tone, it's really, really beautiful.